Good morning. Ayin Beis, volume 3, we're on page 1367. Yesterday we reviewed essentially the contrast between Mikra and Asiyah, which is that the level of Mikra, written Torah, the verses are in the world of Asiyah, but they're rooted in Chabad of Atzilus. But because Chabad is so lofty and such a high level, all that's expressed is an outer dimension of it, but the outer dimension of a higher level goes down lower, and that's in the world of Asiyah. So what do we get? An actual narrative, a simple narrative, the stories, the Sipuri Maisis, as he said, at the bottom of page 1365. Harbi Sipuri Maisis B'Teira. It's all in story form. A child could understand. And the mitzvahs don't have the details and don't have the deeper understanding behind them. On the other hand, Mishnah is rooted in Chagas of Atzilus, which is a lower level and is more connected to existence because it's already midas that relate to existence. So there you don't need to have an outer expression of it. The very essence of Chagas manifests in Mishnah, and that ends up in Yetzirah, which is a world of revelation. Yetzirah is a world of divine revelation. Not as high as the world of Bria, not as high, but it's still compared to Asiyah. And that's why the Mishnah has details that really spell out how we do a mitzvah and how we connect to God, the chesed of Hashem that comes through it, and so on. And he gave the comparison of, in Keser, the two levels of Golgalta, Moich and Golgalta. Moyach is more Gilui. Golgalta is more Etzem. So like he said, and I'm just going to go over it because I did review a bit more and I'll explain the parentheses. So Moyach begins Chochmah Shebekeser. Chochmah is already a revelation. Golgalta is Atzmis HaKeser. That's why it doesn't have Gili. What is it? It's just Ratzon. When I say I want something, it makes no difference. If the king commands and says I want something, whether you understand it or not, you do it. Kabbalah sale. And everybody's equalized in that. Chachma is understanding. So someone who understands more will have more revelation. Someone who understands less will have less. So Chachma is subject more because of Giluyim. Atzmis HaKeser is Golgalta. So which is higher? So Golgalta comes from a higher place, Etzem, but it's only the outer expression. That's why it's only like a Golgelis. It's inanimate. How it's Nishtalshel below in this world. Obviously, this is an archetype for the way it is below in this world. It's like just the very bone itself, the structure of the skull itself, not the brain, not the intelligence in the mind. So it comes into Chetzenis HaKeser. In the parentheses, what he adds is a little more detail. That when you say Chetzenis HaKeser, which is Golgalta, what's Primus HaKeser? So Primus HaKeser is Atik, which is Tainug. Tainug is a Gilui. Tainug is a manifestation. When you say Ratzon, I want something, you don't yet know. When you say the king has pleasure, pleasure is a Gili. Not a Gili, however, in the world of consciousness, it's a Gili in the world of supraconsciousness. Golgalta is Ratzon. So that's the Chetzenis. Then elsewhere he explains, he actually connects Atik to Moichin. Because before the parentheses, we said Moich is Gilui, and Golgelis is Etzem, which comes in the Chetzenis. But now when you say that Primis HaMoich, Moich Sosim, and that's Moich of Atik, so that connects with the Moich of Atik, which is a level of Gili. Golgalta b'chinas Chetzenis, the Primis Zu. So now it's not two separate entities. The Golgelis comes from the Etzem. It's actually the Chetzenis of the Primis of Atik. But it expresses itself in a very simple way, which is without any Giluyim, like a Golgelis, which doesn't have any Chayas in it, any energy vitality, like Ratzon. And however, it's coming from a very deep place, but it's expressed only in this outer place. We're going to learn more about it as we learn on. I just wanted to add that. So that's where we're up to, with the last line being, V'hainu, shemadrega gavoy yesod yochel yizgal sak b'chinas hachetzenis. The higher level, you can only have an outer expression because it's so high. But this outer level, which is like in this case Golgalta, Yeredes Lamata Yeser, It comes down to a lower place than the pnimius of Tachten, which is Meiches Tema. Right. And now he's going to continue explaining this idea, which, let's remember, it's about Mikra, rooted higher, going down lower, into Asiyah, Mikra, rooted in Chabad and going to Asiyah, and Mishnah, rooted in Chagas, which is Tachten, but it's more pnimius, and only goes into Yetzirah, not into Asiyah. Like it says elsewhere, Gamkein. No, there's another example for this. Which was Gamkein be'inyan Moshe ve'Eliyahu. So a similar idea is explained elsewhere regarding Moshe and Eliyahu. So these are two great, of course, giants. The Eliyahu nikra Malach Habris. Eliyahu is called the Malach Habris, the angel of the covenant. That's why Eliyahu l'cheinu nimtza b'chol bris milah. That's why he's found. You say Eliyahu comes to every circumcision. That's you make a kiseh shel Eliyahu, a seat, a throne for Eliyahu, because Eliyahu is connected to bris. We also find by Eliyahu, you find that he becomes a shliach to chol davar. Every area you find Eliyahu sent as a shliach. You know, stories that you hear, that Eliyahu Navi came, Eliyahu Navi arrived, he brought a message. So he's considered one of the quintessential shluchim from heaven. Interesting expression, the chol davar. Chol davar means literally to everything. But apparently he means not to everything literally, but it's not occasional. It's quite often that he's considered to be a shliach for many different purposes. I'm sorry, I didn't read the full sentence. That we find that he becomes a shliach, a messenger, an ambassador to every area where you need a shliach. Eliyahu seems to be the one that is the messenger. Like we find in Zeh by Rashbi, we find in the story with Rashbi, when he needed a shliach, so who did he use? He said, Kum Eliyahu, Eliyahu, rise. So he used him to become a shliach. One example, Eliyahu is like the go-to shliach, so to speak. So what's the reason for this? Why is Eliyahu the Malach HaBris that comes to every bris? No, he makes a lot of appearances, basically. He doesn't mention Pesach, actually. Kreishel Eliyahu, we also have Eliyahu that comes every Pesach, to every Seder. But he says, why is that the case? And he's going to contrast it with Moshe Rabbeinu. Because Kabbalistically speaking, Eliyahu is rooted. He's the level of the outer dimension of Shem Ma. Now you may recall, we learned this earlier when we talked about Neshamas from Ma and Neshamas of Ban. So we said Moshe is the essence of Shem Ma. Moshe, actually the letters, Mem Shin Hey, Mem Hey. Bitl v'nochnu Mo. That's Moshe. Eliyahu, who rose, I don't remember what page it was on the right side of the page. I remember. We can find it later. Eliyahu, who was not buried, but his very body was consumed together with his soul when he went up to heaven. Like we say, Elisha saw him go straight up to heaven because he was a neshama of Ban. But at the same time, we say that Eliyahu is also connected to Ma. So the answer is he's chitzenius of Ma, which is called the Ban within Ma. If you may recall, he spoke about this when he spoke about tzaddikim and Bali Tshuva. So a tzaddik is Shem Ma. It's a gili. It's from the top. He's a tzaddik who never tasted anything, never had the thirst that comes when you're lacking something. But even a tzaddik also needs a ban within ma. And that's when the tzaddik elevates higher, he starts feeling an inadequacy. That was probably around the whole piece with the tzaddikim. I think it was around page 1344, probably 1345. Oh, right here, yeah, 1344. I like that. Right there, the end of the paragraph, he explains it. So Moshe was ma, his whole thing was like a tzaddik. Ban is gematria behema, is someone transforming the behema. Eliyahu is in between. He's the chitzenius of ma, what he says now in the parentheses, right here, okay, do the Moshe b'chinas ma de ma, Moshe is ma of ma, said that on page 1344, Eliyahu b'chinas ban de ma. Eliyahu did work more with his body, and that's why his body was refined, but it's ban within ma, which is another way of saying chitzenius of ma. So now we see again the same idea, that a high level has chitzenius to it, and that's why it comes down lower. That's what he's going to explain. Ubchinas hachitzenius yuchalated ad lamata mata b'yesed. Like we just said, the pnimius of something can go down that low. Like I explained yesterday, the example of a teacher teaching a brilliant teacher teaching brilliant students. He goes up to the level of those students. To go down to the level of a child, like mikra, a simple level, you need something far higher. So when you're talking about chitzenius, that can go down, because the chitzenius, it's not the very pnimius of something. That goes down lower, like mikra goes into Asiyah. So since Eliyahu is chitzenius, that's why he goes down, lamata mata b'yesed. And now he explains in a parenthesis a little more explanation of this idea. Why is that the case? Because the pnimius of something retains its intensity. As its intensity can't go everywhere, because not everything is a keli for it. But chitzenius comes in a more concealed way, and bislapshus, it more manifests, it's more enclosed, and like with a garment. Ukanal be'inya b'chinas sevav kalam, like we learned before on previous page about sevav kalalmin. He says that he says that we can experience it more below because it's concealed. If something is revealed, like the bright sun, not everybody can look at it. But if it's more diminished or concealed, so that's why chitzenius is able to go. Because it's now an outer expression, like the nehi of Chachma Chabad, and therefore it can manifest, it can get enclosed and covered up in a number of garments without any limit. That's what defines it. That's why it's a chitzenius. A pnimius is the far more revealed and intense level. Pnimius ubchinas gili. Pnimius is, however, a level of gili, revelation. Al kain lo yuchal liyas nimshach b'mokim she'ef shaliyas gili. That's why it doesn't have the capacity. It's not capable of being drawn into a place where there can be no gili. She'ef shaliyas gili. So a place which is not conducive to gili, pnimius is not going to go there. That's mamalakom. That's because it's defined by its state of revelation. The chitzenius, because it's concealed, can go to a lower place. Well, now going back to Eliyahu, since Eliyahu is the chitzenius of Shema, the ban of Shema, Eliyahu dafka nasa shliach mepnei sheyuchalated b'chol mokim. Why is Eliyahu? Because Eliyahu is able to go everywhere. He's able to descend in every location. That's why he's the one that's chosen. Moshe Rabbeinu, for example, in this case, is only there for certain occasions. With his real gili, you need Moshe Rabbeinu. But if you need a shliach to go to every situation, even places where there isn't so much revelation or no revelation, that's Eliyahu. But this also has a positive side to it. It's not just it's chitzenius and it's hidden. The gamzais shachitzenius is shorshel l'mayli yeser. And this includes also the point that a chitzenius is also rooted in a higher place. Al kain be yechelis slated lamati yeses. That's why it can come down lower. So it has both aspects to it. On one hand, in Giluyim, it's only a diminished state. That's why it goes down lower. But in its root, it's rooted in a deeper, higher place. And that's why it can come. But the way it manifests is in an outer and concealed way. So Mikra in this context, as we're going to soon understand, is exactly that. It's rooted in the highest place. The way it's expressed comes down to simple stories and just the basic mitzvahs without explanation, without much revelation. And now he's going to bring it back. And first of all, let me stop here, but if anybody wants to ask anything. He's now going to bring back to Torah and mitzvahs, and then he's going to go back to Mikra and Mishnah. Any questions? Okay. And so too is it with Torah and mitzvahs. Mitzvahs are rooted higher than the root of Torah. The root of Torah is Chachma because Torah is fundamentally God's wisdom. It's the Chachma within Keser, like we said before, Chachma, like you said, the Moicha, which is Moich of Shebekeser, Chachma Shebekeser. And the root of mitzvahs, B'Sheresh HaMitzvahs, Heim B'Chinas Gulgalta, B'Chinas Keser Shebekeser. It's the state, mitzvahs are rooted in Keser Shebekeser, Shu B'Chinas Chitzeni Shebelyan, that's Rotzen. So it's Keser Shebekeser, way it manifests is the Chitzenius of a higher level. Torah is the Pnimius of a lower level, it's Chachma, so it's Pnimius, it's understanding. To appreciate Torah, you need to understand Torah. We're not talking about the etzem of Torah like on Simchas Torah when you dance with it. That's when it's wrapped up. We're talking about the learning Torah, the chachma of Torah. Mitzvahs, anyone can do a mitzvah. It's not dependent on revelation. It's dependent on fulfilling God's will. So it's kesser shebekesser, it's chitzeni shebel. L'chein nishpalu ha-mitzvahs l'mata yeser maha-Torah. And that's why mitzvahs lowered themselves. And they came down lower than Torah. The mitzvahs saying Asiyah b'peil mamish. Mitzvahs are performed in action. B'peil mamish, an action, an executable action. Dafke. Explicitly that. The Torah be a dia. And Torah is manifest in knowledge, in awareness, in perception, in knowing, in knowledge. Shazel mitzvahs limud yediyas ha-Torah. That's the mitzvah of learning and knowing, limud yediyas ha-Torah, to learn the knowledge of Torah. So, if you're talking about Giluyim, Yediyah is higher than Maisa. The mind is greater than an action. But if you're talking in the bringing it down lower, action is far more of a lower state than the mind. So it depends what you're talking about. So the root, so in Peil Mamish, Maisa, of course, doesn't have the firepower, so to speak, of knowledge. But it's rooted in a higher place. And that's where the root of mitzvahs come all the way down into Asiyah. Like Eliyahu, since he's the chitzenius of Ma, he comes down to every situation, could be the shliach to everything, including every bris and so on. Ulechein, and that's why, next page, 1368, Ulechein ha-mitzvahs hein shavin l'kol echad ve'echad miYisrael. That's why mitzvahs are equalizer. They're equal for every Jew, for every individual Jew. Mashenk and Torah, whereas in Torah there are differences, the different levels of Yediyah. Different people have different levels of knowledge and of Yediyah, of knowing Torah. Commission is bar leil, as was explained earlier. Okay, so we have here the aspect that it comes down lower, but we also have the other side of it. Who gam kain. And here too we see what we discussed, but the rule, the formula that he stated earlier, that the outer dimension of a higher level goes down lower than the pnimius of a lower level. But when it comes down, it's in a state of, it's concealed. So mitzvahs are more concealed divinity, because you're just performing the mitzvah of God, the Ratzon of Hashem. But it comes down lower. Torah is much more revealed because it's knowing and understanding godliness, so it's more revelation. And now he concludes back to Mikra and Mishnah. And so too is it with the verse Mikra, the first so-called part, I guess, section or aspect of Torah. Not aspect, it's not the right word. The first division of Torah, section or sub. Or Mishnah. The Mikra, Hubchinis Chabad Shabbat Silas. The verse is coming from Chabad of Atzilus. But what's drawn from there, what extends downward, is only the outer expression of a higher level, which is Nehi. And its transmission is Dafka in the world of Asiyah. Like we said, stories, narrative, the actions of mitzvahs. Yes, it has some, here and there it has a reason, but it's all very bekitzer and so on. Well, Mishnah hu chagas d'Atzilus. Mishnah is the level of chagas, the midas of Atzilus. V'nimsha b'chinas atzmis the chagas. Now we're getting the very core of the chagas, because you can get the core because it's not such a high, lofty level. Rakam shoche be'elam ha-Yetzirah loy ba'Asiyah. But its Hamshacha is only in the world of Yetzirah, not in Asiyah. It cannot come down that low because it's much more gili. The liyash is of b'chinas atzmis Chabad. She b'chinas apnimish shabo b'chinas gili. Aken efshal liyas agili rak be'elam ha-Yetzirah. I think the word Chabad here looks to me should be chagas. Because he's talking about Mishnah. So I think this Chabad, the word Chabad means chagas. I don't see how you can say it's Chabad. I'll read it again, but that's what it looks like. Deliyes, being that this is the core, and I'm just going to say it's chagas, she b'chinas ha-pnimius, which is a level of pnimius. Shabab b'chinas gili, that comes in a gili state. You can't say it's Chabad because Mikra comes from Chabad. That's why the gili could only be an elamai v'yitzira, which is Mishnah that comes from a chagas. No, this has to be chagas. I can't see it being Chabad. Interestingly, I think in the Alter Rebbe's Maimer it also says Chabad. So the Rebbe Rashab copied what it said there, but I have to look there. But I'm almost sure that it also there it has to be chagas. I can't see any way that you can explain it's Chabad, unless he means that is the chagas within Chabad. That's too, would be too cryptic. I mean, listen, I'm the last person that wants to correct something, but I just don't see how you can say it's Chabad. Okay.
Can you take a question?
Yeah, I'm going to stop now for questions. Yeah.
So my question is, when it says that it can only come into revelation, so that this Mishnah, which is the Panimus of Chagas, says can only be revealed in Yetzirah, but we have the Mishnah. So what's that? What are we reading? I mean, that I get so confused when it says that, because what do I have here?
That's what he's gonna qualify that in the next few sentences. He's going to address this in the next section.
Okay.
I think he actually addressed it even earlier, but I think he's going to say it again now.
You didn't explain the Brisa versus Mishnah yet, did you?
Mikra is a Raisa? Is that what you mean? Mikra?
No, what do you call them? The Mishnah, the Brisas. What do you call them?
You didn't speak about Brisa yet.
No. Yeah, I'm fussy to hear that.
I mean, like Tosefta, like the additional commentary?
Brisa. We'll learn about it. Brisa comes page 1371. He's going to start speaking about the Brisas, okay? First is going to go Mishnah all the way till page 1371. Another 3 pages. And the bottom of the page there, he starts with Brisa. And then on page 1372, he goes to Talmud. We're going to go through the whole structure of Torah here. I told you, this is a lot of pages. This is going to be a good 80 pages, probably. before, well, I don't remember exactly, but before he gets back to the three levels, maybe, yeah, there's a lot of pages here. Yeah. To page 1386, I'm sorry, not 100, 1386, he's going to go back to Eir Alavana, Ervin Tev, and Riyah. But, yeah. Okay. So let's continue. I was going to qualify. I was going to say like this. Agamda Mishnah Gamke Yard Lamata, but Elam Asiyah, and though Mishnah also descended below in the world of Asiyah. The fact is, we have Mishnah here in our world. We study Mishnah. And furthermore, the real fulfillment of the halah, the elevation that comes, that we elevate the world through mitzvahs, became mitzvahs b'asiyah dafke. So though we said it's true that mitzvahs are in asiyah, but also a Mishnah which talks about mitzvahs. Remember, a Mishnah explains a carbon, for example. Previous page, he said that in Mishnah you get the details of what makes a carbon kosher or not kosher, which is the process of how we elevate the world. Top of page 1367, the previous page. So not only does Mishnah come down below, but the Gemara Allah, the fulfillment, the conclusion of the elevating of the world is dafke in this world. So the fulfillment of Mishnah is dafke Asiyah through the Kima Mitzvos of Asiyah. Imkain, it's all part of the qualification. Pratia Mitzvos Hamuvuarim b'Mishnah, the details of the mitzvahs that we explained that are explained in the Mishnah. The primary thing is not to study them in the world of Yetzirah, that neshamas and angels should study them in spiritual realms, in the spiritual realm of Yetzirah, but that it should be performed dafke and asiyah like that. That's the whole purpose of the Mishnah. So how do you explain what we just said? So Makom Mokim, nevertheless, Ha'ara ve'izgala shala Mishnah, the reflection and the revelation of the Mishnah, Sheshar Shemachagas Datzilis, that's rooted in Chagas, in Chesed Gvur Teferes of Atzilis, Ein Meir Bizgalas Ki'im Be'elam HaYetzirah. So though its purpose is to come down, but where does it radiate? In its full glory, so to speak, in a revealed way, is dafka in the world of Yetzirah. What we get is the Asiyah within Yetzirah, so to speak. We're getting the outer dimension of Mishnah, just like we get the outer dimension of Mikra, of mitzvahs. And it's true that Kavan is dafka. We're not taking away from we're talking now on the revelation, the pure power of what Mishnah is revealed in the element of Yetzirah. A good example for us, and this is all from the Alter Rebbe Maimer and the Tzemach Tzedek's version of it. Al derech mashal, like for example, Kamei Shalem, the Mishnah began Eden, the way a Mishnah is studied in Gan Eden, which is in the world of Yetzirah. Eina dema his galus ma Mishnah sham el eich sheba his galus kushin islap sham Mishnah v'lem dem eisa be'elam Asiyah. The way you learn a Mishnah in Gan Eden, not Asiyah, in Yetzirah, it's not comparable. The revelation from the way it comes down and is revealed and manifests the Mishnah, the way we learn it in Elam Asiyah. So though the purpose of Mishnah is to be performed in an action, in Asiyah, and the Mishnah comes down to Asiyah, and its purpose is to be performed in Asiyah, that's where the whole purpose of it. But when you learn that same Mishnah down below, as much as you know and understand of it, on the revelation level, it's not comparable to the way the way that Mishnah is studied in Gan Eden and Yetzirah. So bottom line, there's two different things here. There's the purpose of something, the kavanah, and then there's the giluyim of something. Gilui, like we've been learning, is not about the ultimate purpose. Like I said about Yofa Sha'achas B'tshuva, 1 Maisim Tevim Be'elam Hazeh. 1 hour of Tshuva Maisim Tevim in this world is worth more than everything, than all the higher worlds, the world to come, including Yetzirah and Bria and so on. And yet, you talk about Giluyim, 1 hour of pleasure in Elam Haba is worth more than all the pleasures of this world. What's the difference? Because one is the pleasure of God and purpose. That's in this world. But Giluyim, if you talk about pure Giluyim and revelation, it's higher in the higher worlds. Like you said, there is in Torah and Mitzvos. Mitzvos, the performance of Mitzvos is only in this world, but everyone is equal in that. Hashenk in Torah, Giluyim, there's differences by the level of learning Torah. Everybody has their level of understanding of Torah. So that's how he explains the point here. So Mishnah does come down to this world, and it's actually fulfilled with the purpose of it. The Gmar HaLah is dafka below. The Ikar is an Asiyah. But if you talk about the Gilui of the Mishnah, understanding, appreciating its full power of Chagas of Atzilus, that's more in Yetzirah than it is in Asiyah. And all this has come together. That's why I elaborated the other day so much the need to have both. You want to have Gilui and Etzem. The Etzem is performed down below. Like you said, the Etzem, the Golgalta, the Mitzvos, that's bringing from a higher level. But you want that to be Gilui in a revealed way. You want a combination, the best of both worlds. The Gilui of the Etzem, if you wish. Like we learned about Malchus. On one hand, Malchus has nothing of its own, and it's rooted in Helama Atzmi, which is higher than Giluyim. But you want that too to be Gilui. And that's why you need the Giluyim of the whole Seder Shtalshlus and Zoh and so on. You need the moon and the sun. And then you have the milas of both. Giluyim themselves are a highest level of Gilui, but they're not Etzem. They're not higher than Gilui. They're Mamala Kalam. And here we're talking about something that comes down lower because it's the outer dimension. But you want to have the Giluyim. And ultimately the goal is going to be the combination of both. We haven't gotten there yet, but but he's laying it out in detail. Okay.
So the details of Mishnah that we read and hear in our world, Asiyah, are what? The chitzonius of Chagas of Atzilus? Is that because you said, it said it's the pneumius. Yeah.
You're asking technically what the level of it is? The technical level?
Yeah, because
we said the understanding is very straightforward. When I mentioned, for example, when a teacher teaches a class of kindergarten, young children, the teachings themselves are going to be very simple, but they come from a very high source. They're very simple, and that's why a child could understand it. When you see a teacher of a class of advanced students, the teachings are going to be much more profound. Yetzirah is a higher class. Neshamis or Malachim in the world of Yetzirah understand Torah deeper than we do in this earth. We understand it like children understand it. We learn it. The purpose of it is to come down in this world, and we should perform it. Technically speaking, it works like this. Mikra is rooted in Chabad of Atzilus. The chitzenius of that comes down into Asiyah. That's why Mikra is an Asiyah, not in Yetzirah, not in Bria. Mishnah is more Gilui. It explains details. Even on earth, it explains more details than the Mikra does. So it's Chagas, is the Etzem of Chagas, which radiates in Yetzirah in the most revealed way. And that too comes down to Asiyah. He doesn't explain what level comes down to Asiyah, but a level of it is definitely less, the more diminished. That's why it's down below in Asiyah. But it also comes down. But its primary, if you want to appreciate Mishnah in its fullest sense, is in the world of Yetzirah. And then it comes down below because that's where it has to come to Asiyah, and that's where we perform the mitzvahs. The purpose, like he said, that the Ikar She'iyeh B'Asiyah, but in its pure Gilui, Yetzirah is its final place. Is it Nihi of Chagas of Atzilus? I don't know. He doesn't say, so I'm not going to guess what level. It's definitely a more diminished level than Yetzirah itself. That's the whole point.
Also, is there a difference?
But it's more revealed. But even on earth, Mishnah is more revealed, has more details. That's why we can perform a mitzvah based on a Mishnah and not based on a Mikra. So even on our level, Mishnah is more revelatory than Mikra.
And he says here, ha'ara v'haskalas. So he's saying both the reflection and the direct revelation of. Is it the case that the details of Mishnah that we can read here in this world is more of an ha'ara than an iskalos? Is that also part of it?
Let's use English. If you could say it in English, I'll be able to.
Okay, so it's the third line.
I just explained it. I explained it.
Yeah.
It's like teaching the same idea to a lower class.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but that's the ha'ara.
Tell me what the word ha'ara means. Ha'ara is just a Hebrew word for the word of.
Okay.
When you learn the Mishnah in a higher class, you understand it better and a more gilui than when you learn a lower class, lower students. That you understand?
Yeah.
That's what ha'ara. That's what means. Eina doima is galus ma Mishnah sham in Gan Eden. You can't compare the revelation of Mishnah in Gan Eden to the way it comes down and manifests and it's taught and learned in the world of Asiyah. So where's the main revelation and reflection of Chagas of Atzilus is in Yetzirah. Which line are you looking to translate?
Well, I mean, I was trying to parse where it says the third line from the end of the paragraph.
Meaning the reflection and the revelation of the Mishnah from Chagas of Atzilus, where is it? It doesn't reveal. It's not radiating in a revealed way, except in Yetzirah. And he gave an example because in Asiyah, when you learn it, it's on a lower level than the way you learn it in Gan Eden. So
yeah, I thought we read like a page or page and a half above that the pneumius of a level in Atzilus that does come down. It comes down that there's a difference between the ha'ara of it and the hiskalus of it.
I think you're getting caught in semantics. I'm not sure what ha'ara hiskalus means. A reflection and revelation of Chagas of Atzilus manifests in Yetzirah. Dafka in Yetzirah. That's all it says here. I don't think it's not I don't think you compare the words. Hisgalus is a very broad word. It simply means revelation.
Okay.
And the aura is a reflection. He's not qualifying. Sometimes the aura means only a reflection. Sometimes it's a full reflection. You can find it many ways.
But that's exactly my question.
This is not a digduk class. It's not. We're not talking semantics here. He's saying the reflection and revelation of Chagas of Atzilus, which is Mishnah, manifests in Yetzirah. Ha'ara Hisgalus is a strong power. It's a revelation. In Asiyah, the revelation is much more minimal.
Okay. I'm going to try and find the other reference that I was referring to.
I don't think you could do that because Ha'ara Hisgalus is used in Chassidus thousands of times. It's all context.
Oh.
It simply means a reflection and revelation. It depends on the context.
Okay. Thank you.
It's the etzem of Chagas that's radiating and the reflecting in the world of Mishnah, in the world of Yetzirah. Okay. Are there any other questions? So we ended the paragraph here on page 1368. Any questions? Yeah.
Rabbi Jacobson, I have a question. Based upon what we just discussed, where would you categorize actual halachot that are derived from the Talmud? Where would you put this in this whole hierarchy?
I wouldn't put it anywhere until the Rebbe Rashab puts it. He's going to discuss, he just so far covered Mikra, and we're still in the middle of Mishnah. 3 more pages on Mishnah. Then he's going to go to Brisa. Then he's going to go to Talmud. I would wait to hear how he explains all these different levels. Then we can, when you mean by halacha, what do you mean? Shulchan Aruch, what do you mean by halacha?
Yes, the ultimate conclusion of the discussion of the Talmud, which we deduce halacha from the Shulchan Aruch.
Okay, so I would wait till we finish everything. He's going to study. Talmud is going to be discussed, and we'll see where he goes. I mean, there's a lot of the stuff, plenty to come here. I can't place anything right now. I don't know. I don't have an answer at this point. We don't have. He didn't discuss it yet. Okay. Any? Okay. So we'll stop here. End the paragraph on page 1368.